Steve Lamb, alcoholic. It's good to be here. It's good to be sober. My sobriety date is July 27th, 1996. Thanks, Glenn, for inviting me to share. It's always a honor and a privilege to share at Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought I would focus my talk on love and service this morning. This afternoon for you guys. It's morning for me. And the reason why I want to do that is because when I first got here, I just had some real difficulty with the concept of love and service, and I'll talk about it a little bit more later. But as many of you know, in one of probably the last talks that Dr. Bob gave in 1950 before he passed away, he said that essentially Alcoholics Anonymous boils down to love and service. And he said, and we all know what love is, and we all know what service is. And while, if you've been around a while, you probably do know what love and service is, but I didn't when I was new. I had a confusion. I thought of love as an emotion, a feeling, maybe a sexual act. I didn't understand that, the fruit of love is service, as Mother Teresa likes to say. So the demonstration of love is service. And I really didn't have a clue about that. And I got here on a court card. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to get sober. I didn't want to stay sober. I'm the kind of alcoholic my wife would send me out to get milk, and it's really not a complicated task. There's a couple of parts you got to do. You got to go to the store. You got to buy the milk. And then you got to come home with the milk. And I was pretty good at the first two parts, but the last part, the whole coming home with the milk, not so much. And the problem that I would run into is that I would get distracted. I would go to the store and buy the milk, and I'd see somebody and they'd say, "Hey, Lamb, do you want to have a beer?" Well, of course I'd like to have a beer. I mean, it's like a basic food group. You can't get in trouble for having a beer, right? So I'd go with somebody and we'd have a beer, and unknowing to me, I've got this allergic reaction to alcohol. So once I start drinking, I want more. It doesn't quench my thirst. I get thirstier, and I'm drinking more beer, and I'm never satisfied. I suffer from the Goldilocks principle. It's like too warm, too cold. It's never just right. So I wanted to get there, and I wanted to get there now. I don't even know where there is, but I like accelerants like tequila. So I'm drinking beer and I'm shooting tequila, drinking beer and shooting tequila, and 3 days later, I come to and I realize, oh man, I got to go to the store and get the milk, right? So I go home and I get the milk, and I show my wife the milk. I'm like, "Hey, baby, I got the milk." I'm all proud. She's not happy. She's really kind of seriously pissed off. It's been 3 days, and I suffer from delusions. I feel like I've accomplished this really very difficult task. I should be proud of myself. I don't know. I need a gold star or something, right? And she's pissed off, and I just don't understand. I don't understand the problem. I don't understand anything about love, and I don't understand anything about service. And I come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I got popped for a DUI, and I come in and I go about 100 days stark raving sober. I hear you're telling me your story. I got it. I can't control and enjoy my drinking. I got to stop drinking. So I stopped drinking, but I don't want to overreact. I certainly don't want to work the steps. I don't want to get a sponsor. I don't do any of that stuff, right? And I'm thinking if I just hunker down and I don't drink, I'll get better. That's not my experience. What happened was I stopped drinking and I got worse. I got a lot worse. And finally I wound up getting a sponsor, and my sponsor, Michael, told me that, hey, we're going to read this book, or we're going to go through the book. We're going to go page by page, line by line, word for word through the book. And when we get to a prayer, we're going to read the prayer. We get to a step, we're going to work the step. And I was kind of beaten into a state of reasonableness. I had no options, at least in my mind. So I figured that's what we're going to do. And as we're reading the book, within the first, first session or two, he started talking to me about service. He says, "Do you have any service commitments?" I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, I mean, are you of service anywhere?" And I thought, "No." And what's this? "What, do you know what I'm talking about?" I said, "No, it sounds like work. I don't like work. I don't want to work." He's like, "Well, Well, it sounds like work, but it feels like love. And I thought, oh crap, this is one of these AA, let us love you until you can love yourself crap. I thought, oh my God, I don't need crap. So, but he's like, do you know McNeil? I'm like, yeah, I know McNeil. He goes, well, you've had a DUI, but you can drive right now. And McNeil's had a few DUIs. I think he's had 2 or 3 DUIs, and he can't drive. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, he lives in Culver City, and you work downtown LA, right? I'm like, well, yeah. And he said, well, when you drive from downtown LA to where you go to the meeting in Hermosa Beach, you got to kind of drive by Culver City, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, what I want you to do is I want you to call McNeil and offer him a ride to the meeting. I'm like, I don't like McNeil. He said, I didn't ask you if you like McNeil. You remember you said you were willing to go to any length for victory over alcohol, right? I said, yeah, I know, but we all say that. We don't really mean that crap, right? I mean, I don't really like McNeil. He goes, well, why don't you like McNeil? I said, well, that guy will not shut up. God, he just drives me crazy. Just talk, 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 talk. I mean, I can't even think straight when he's talking. And Michael goes, great, call McNeil. I'm like, man, you're not paying attention. He goes, well, either do it or don't. That was kind of his standard approach, do it or don't. And let me know how it works out. And kind of like the acid test it talks about on pages 37 and 88 of the 12 and 12. How's it working out for you? I'm like, oh, man, all right. So I figure I'll call McNeil, right? I call McNeil. McNeil's all excited because he wants me to give him a ride. I'm like, oh, geez, right? So I get him in the car and I'm driving to the meeting, and McNeil does what McNeil does. He just talks the whole damn time. I'm like, God, this guy's driving me crazy. We finally get to the meeting, and get to the meeting hall, and I get in there and I see Michael. Michael's like, how'd it go? I said, God, it's intolerable. That guy's a jackass. He will not stop talking. And he's laughing. He goes, well, what were you thinking about while McNeil was talking? I'm like, I'm thinking I got to get him the hell out of my car. That's what I'm thinking. He goes, well, were you thinking about yourself? I said, no. He goes, well, that's perfect. That's what we talk about in love and service. That's that moment of grace, when we're out of self and into God. And I'm like, yeah, well, it looks a lot like McNeil. And well, look, it's just a suggestion, but I think you should continue to give McNeil a ride. Okay, so I give him a ride every week, right? And begrudgingly, I start noticing that because McNeil's doing what McNeil's doing, he will not shut up, right? And I realize, oh my God, while he's yakking, there's some relief from, I'm not thinking about myself. So I'm kind of looking forward to taking McNeil to the meeting, even though it's annoying me at the time. And then, and I don't know, I don't know if you do this in other parts of the country, but what happened to me is McNeil cheated on me. I don't know how to put it. The son of a bitch got another ride. And I'm like, what the hell, right? So I call Michael. I'm like, hey, this is BS, man. This is my guy. I don't even like this guy, but he's my guy. It's my commitment. And he's laughing. Michael's laughing. And by the way, if you're new, sponsors laugh a lot. They find this very humorous. And he's like, you go, lamb. He goes, get another one. I'm like, get another what? He goes, get another newcomer. I'm like, you can do that? He goes, yeah, they're everywhere. And that's my experience. So I got another one. And McNeil got another one. I've been sober 28 years and change, and McNeil's been sober 28 years. And I actually like McNeil now. It took me a while, but I like McNeil now. And so that's one of the ways that I learned about love and service. And, we're going through the steps, and love and service is about carrying or trying to carry the message in Alcoholics Anonymous, and also about trying to practice the principles. And one of the things that I noticed is I started sponsoring guys, and I'm taking guys through the steps. And one of the first things that I noticed is that these sponsees that I have, they would call me and they would ask me, how are you doing, Lamb? Because apparently that's the polite thing to do, ask how people are doing, right? But I rapidly realized that they don't really care how I'm doing. this is just a, kind of an obligatory, polite, how are you doing? Because I would start telling them how I'm doing, and they would interrupt me constantly and want to tell me about their problem of the day. They want to talk about her or him or the job or whatever. And I thought, oh my God, how self-centered can you be? Apparently just as self-centered as I was. And what would happen is they would start talking about themselves and would start focusing on the steps and would talk about a potential solution. And I would realize I'm not thinking about myself, and it would be a relief. And so these sponsees were like a divine distraction, an annoyance, but a divine distraction. And then I remember one day I got a call from a sponsee, and then he asked me how you doing, and I started to tell. He actually listened, and after he heard me, he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about Mark." I'm like, "What about Mark?" He goes, "Well, I've been sponsoring Mark for a while, and we're trying to do," and I don't remember the specific problem. Either Mark was having difficulty with prayer or meditation, or maybe he didn't want to make amends, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but we had this discussion about Mark, and we spent about 15 or 20 minutes where this sponsee and I talked about a potential solution to how we could address Mark's problem. And I hung up and I realized that, wow, my sponsee and I, we both spent about 20 minutes and neither one of us were talking about ourselves. We were talking about Mark. We were trying to be of love and service. And I don't know what your definition of a conscious contact with, but that meets my definition. It's that space, where there's some relief, and it's a big thing. It's important, but I need to be, I need to be of love and service. I need to try to carry the message in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I need to also try to practice the principles in all my affairs. And one of the things I realized, it took me a while, but I got better at first in the rooms, and I got better working with other alcoholics, and lastly at home. And that's really kind of sad and pathetic in some ways, but that's been my story, and that's been pretty consistent with a lot of the guys that I sponsor. For some reason, the last people that we really address are those we love. The book talks about the sad wives and the blameless children. But I seem to focus on them not first, which is kind of backwards, but that's my reality. And I remember at one point in time, like I said, these guys would call me, these sponsees would call me, and I would really pay attention because we got a real piece of business that we're going to address, and we're in the steps, and we're men of God, we're doing all this stuff, right? And I realized, and this took me several years, but I realized what would happen is my wife would call me, and we'd have a conversation about whatever was going on, and I would be multitasking. I really wouldn't be paying attention. Now, when I'm talking to a sponsee, I'm really, I'd drop everything and I'd listen to him because, this is life and death, right? But this woman that I love, that I've been married to for years, I'm multitasking, right? I'm typing on the keyboard or whatever, and my wife would say, "Are you typing?" And I'd lie, no, I don't know what that is. I would lie about it, right? And I did some inventory on this, and I was looking at this in relation to 6 and 7, because this is a pretty significant character defect. And I'm like, I'm willing to have God remove this, but have I humbly asked Him? So I pray and meditate, and I ask God to remove this, and it happens for a bit, but it takes a while, and I'm talking to my sponsees about it, and I'm talking to my sponsor about it, and these are the types of things that they're kind of little niggling things. Like I've been sober for quite a number of years, and I realized that we talk about rigorous honesty, and we talk about love and service, and I'm doing this evening review. Every evening I do it. I look at it again in the morning, and one morning I looked at it again, and I realized what I've been doing is I would leave the office and I would get in the car, and because in my mind I'm so kind and considerate and thoughtful, and it's all about love and service to my wife, I would call my wife and I'd tell her, "Hey baby, I'm getting ready to leave the office. Do you need me to stop on the way home at the store to get anything?" Now I've already left the office. And I realized that, well, this isn't entirely accurate because I've already left the office and I just said I'm getting ready to leave the office. So I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Like, do I need extra time? Something exciting might happen in the interim. I don't know. I'm not accurate. This is not true. This is not honest, right? So I think about it for a while because, my first reaction is, well, this isn't really a big deal, is it, right? But it keeps coming up and I've been doing it for years, right? So I call my sponsor, Michael, and I tell him, he goes, oh, so you're lying. I'm like, well, that's kind of a harsh, I don't know if lying. I mean, it's not really accurate, but I don't know. Yeah, you're lying. Um, all right. What are you going to do about it? Well, I don't know. What do you think you should do? Well, maybe you should stop lying. Okay. And maybe you should address this and talk to your wife about it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to think about that. Right. So I pray and meditate some more and I realize this is something I got to do. And this keeps happening because it happens almost every day because I talk to her every day. And after about, I don't know, about maybe a week, it's just grinding on me. So finally, I got to do something about this. So I do it again. And then I'm driving and I'm like, Lynn, I don't know why I said that. I'm already in the car and I don't know why I said it that way. And she's like, oh, I know. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, I can hear you in the car. I've been hearing you in the car for years. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh, crap. Yeah, I'm lying. I don't even know I'm lying. And I'm not even good at it. And it's not even like a significant lie. It's not even something I'm going to get any benefit out. Why am I doing it? Right. And that's part of the process in the steps where, you do, it's interesting. Like you do 6 and 7, you've done 8 and 9, you're doing 10, 11, and 12. And as you do 10, 11, and 12, and you're kind of reviewing stuff, and 6 and 7 to me are kind of like the boomerang steps that kind of come back and bite me in the ass. I got to look at this stuff over and over again, right? And so, I start addressing this stuff, and this takes years. So, if you're new, sorry, that's hope for the newcomer. This is a slow process for me. I mean, I got to tell you, the book talks about there will be a long period of reconstruction. That is no joke. That is no joke. That's a long, at least for me, it's a long period of reconstruction. But so I'm really kind of trying to focus on this. I'm trying to be of love and service, and I'm doing all this stuff, and it's going better. But one of the things that I realized is I know that there's been a lot of people. There's been some devastation recently, in the southeast and everywhere from Florida up to North Carolina, and a lot of flooding and a lot of tragedy. And a little over, it was about a year ago. I was in Maui when the fires occurred, and we'd been there. We'd been there in the condo for about 2 or 3 days, and then the fires occurred, and we're in Kaanapali, which is about, I don't know, maybe 3 miles 3 miles north of Lahaina, where the main fires were. And we lost power, and we're not really aware of what's going on because we lost power. We didn't have water, and we're sitting there. And one of the things that I noticed is that people were kind of automatically, if they had extra stuff, like if there would be families, young kids, and if there was extra water or extra food, everybody would share it. It was very communal. And I'm observing this and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, people are doing this naturally. They're involved in love and service. This is natural. And as an alcoholic, I don't naturally do any of this stuff. So this is like what normal human beings do, who are not alcoholic. And a lot of times in AA, people will say things like, well, I feel sorry for the earth people. I feel sorry for the normies because, we've got this beautiful spiritual practice that we have. And I remember my sponsor used to say, well, we're a little late at the party. The normal people, the normies, they're doing fine. It's us that need the work. And so this whole thing is kind of remarkable. And when we finally got released where we could go around the island to fly out in Kahului, which is where the airport is. And as we drove by, I couldn't believe the devastation. And I know a lot of you guys have experienced that recently in the Southeast with all the flooding. but the fires in Lahaina, it was unbelievable. I mean, I realized later, I found out, I watched some videos because, like I said, we didn't have power. People were jumping over the seawall to avoid the flames. The Alano Club, the Lahaina Alano Club was lost. It was just, there was a lot of devastation, and we got back to Kahului. We finally had some power, and we're trying to figure out how to get out. We couldn't get out the first day, so it was going to be another day, and so we did we basically did car camping. We had a rental car, so we just slept overnight. We slept in there was like a Target parking lot, and there were hundreds and hundreds of these vehicles where people were just sleeping and waiting to get a flight out. And we went to Target at one point in time to buy some water and stuff. And as we're going through the checkout stand, the lady who was doing the checkouts said, "Oh, if how are you doing?" And okay. And then there was a lady behind us, and she said, "Were you affected by the fires?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I mean, no one was hurt, and we're going to get out tomorrow. We're doing pretty good. We're just going to sleep tonight in the car, and then get the flight out tomorrow." And she's like, "Well, we've got a place here. If you want to come by, we can feed you. You can take a shower. You can take a nap if you want. You can even sleep overnight if you'd like." She doesn't know us. I mean, who does this? This is love and service. This is the demonstration of love and service. It was cool. It was a beautiful thing. And one of the things that I realized is that I got to the point where I was learning slowly how to be of love and service to others, but I wasn't so good at accepting service from other people. And I'm sponsoring all these guys. Everything's going pretty good. And then um, what happened a couple years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I had a stroke, and I had to learn how to talk again. I couldn't say the word water. I had a lot of vision problems. I went through vision therapy. I went through speech therapy, and still have a lot of peripheral vision issues. I got lost in my own backyard. It's a small backyard, and I'm pretty self-conscious about what's going on. And after the stroke, I got all these sponsees. My sponsor, all my friends are calling me, and they're saying, "Hey, you got to come to the meeting." I'm like, "I can't. I don't really feel comfortable because I'm bumping into stuff. I'm getting lost. Like I said, I have peripheral vision issues. I'm bumping into stuff. I feel uncomfortable. No, you got to come. I want to go for a while." And then in my home group, which is the Hermosa Beach Men's Stag, one of the kind of, I don't know, customs of the meeting is if you're a sponsor and you're going to give somebody a cake, you gotta show up. And I got a guy he's getting ready to take a cake, so I got to be there. I got to show up to give this guy a cake, and I'm kind of concerned. And my friend Bill C says, "Well, I'll take you. I'll drive you." So it'd been, I don't know, been a couple, maybe 2, 3 months, no, a couple months since a stroke, and I'm kind of concerned. I get to the meeting, and the way the meeting is set up, it's kind of got like a bowling alley feel to it. There's in the front of the meeting hall, there's a kind of the guy that's going to lead the meeting. There's a podium in front of that, and then there's there's actually 6 rows, so 3 rows on each side, and they're facing in. And then somebody's back here. There's a podium, and now there's a camera that's mounted on the ceiling for the Zoom, for the hybrid. But at the time, there was a kind of this tripod there where the camera was. So I knew I was going to have to negotiate around the podium, not trip over the tripod and break the camera. And, it's kind of concerned about. And like I said, and this isn't something that I really, I wasn't really comfortable doing that. And so a guy called and says, we're gonna celebrate this guy's birthday, uh, Howard. And so I gotta stand up, and I stand up, and my sponsor's to my right. I get up to go around the podium, and as I get up, Michael, my sponsor, grabs me by the shoulders and he kind of guides me around the podium so that I don't trip into the podium. And then he hands me to another guy that I sponsor, and he grabs me by the shoulder and he hands me to another guy that I sponsor, and they hand me hand to shoulder down the aisle so that I don't trip and fall. And they're showing me love and service, and that's the demonstration. And and I have relationships with these guys now. I had no idea that that was going to happen. But I got to tell you, they like to make fun of me when I had the stroke. And some of these guys were like, "Oh, you got to come talk." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't feel comfortable talking." Well, what's the problem? I said, "Well, not only do I stumble into stuff, but I'm still jumbling up a lot of words. I do that. I still do that." And I was trying to explain to him that there's kind of an annual. It's a fundraiser. It's a chili cook-off. They do it once a year. They're getting ready to do it actually in about a week. And I was telling somebody about the chili cook-off, and I referred to it as the cookie chill-off. So I got it all ass backwards, right? And I'm still uncomfortable. I'm jumbling up words, and my sponsees are like, "Oh, that's great. That's great. Look, the newcomers, they won't know the difference. And all the old guys, they'll just be excited. They're thinking we're going to get cookies. They don't care. It's not going to matter." And and so it's interesting in Alcoholics Anonymous. We cry and we shed tears at the joy, and we laugh at the tragedy. And that only happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. It doesn't happen around the water cooler at work. It only happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because we've made it through this, and we understand what love and service, and we know what it is, and we've been able to demonstrate it. And it's the type of thing that I never knew that was possible. And I'd been sober, I've been sober 28 years. So this was really, I don't think I fully experienced that until I guess I was about, I don't know, 20, 25, 26 years sober, when I saw both aspects of that, when I saw all aspects of that, and part of that service and practicing the principles and all our affairs, just to kind of give you a sense of, to make sure that nobody's confused that I'm some type of spiritual giant. I'll tell you, one of the things that happened to me is, I told you, I mentioned to you that, sometimes I'm not that quick on the uptake. It takes me a while sometimes to figure this stuff out. And one of the things, and I've got a perception problem. I run right into judgment, and that's what the steps are for. And one of the things that occurred to me, my perception was that I'd been sober. I don't know. I've been sober like about 2 or 3 years, and I'm sponsoring all these guys. And I had made amends to my wife, but I wasn't. I mean, I'm back in the big bed, but clearly I hadn't been restored to full husband status, because what was going on was my wife would take the trash and the recycling and she'd put it outside on the stoop every evening for me. So I'm the trash and recycling guy, right? So my initial reaction was I'm kind of pissed off, and then I got to write some inventory, and I write some inventory, and I pray and I meditate, and I go to Michael and I say, hey, I've got this issue with my wife, and I explained it to her, and Michael said, well, what did she say about it? I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, when you talked to Lynn about it, what did she say? So I haven't talked to her. Well, why not? I said, well, Michael, I know you probably don't realize this. I've been married for a long time, but I know her pretty well. In fact, I'm pretty sure I know what she's thinking before she even thinks it. I know what her reaction would be. He kind of chuckled. He goes, well, we call that mind reading. It's a pretty significant character defect, but if you are not willing to address it, you're going to have to pray and meditate and ask for guidance and direction, because this is a resentment, and it'll eat your lunch, right? You're going to have to resolve this. So I pray and meditate, and looking for guidance. I'm taking out the trash and recycling. And what comes to me after a while in prayer and meditation is that I need to ask for patience, tolerance, love, and understanding. It's all over the book. You guys talk about it all the time. I ask my higher power for it. I get it. I got this relief. I'm okay. You know, I got the trash and recycling. I don't have this resentment anymore. I'm cool. And by the way, I am so spiritual that I want to share with the guys that I sponsor, all my sponsees. I want to share with them all the value and the merit that I've gotten by working the steps and getting through this resentment, and not for me, not for my personal glory, just so that they can appreciate the full value of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a total crock of crap. I mean, I'm totally caught up in spiritual pride, but the problem with spiritual pride is everybody sees it but me, right? So I tell all these guys what great work I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous, and this goes on for about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. Like I said, I'm not that quick on the uptake. And then we get a dog, Zoe, and she's since passed away, but Zoe, beautiful golden retriever. I would take her in the morning, I'd take her for a walk, and Zoe would poop, and I would put the poop in a bag, and I would throw it in the trash. And on evenings that I would go to a meeting, Lynn would take Zoe out in the yard. Zoe would poop, and Lynn would pick it up, and she'd put it in a bag. But did she throw it in the trash? Oh, no. She put it on the stoop with the trash and recycling, waiting for me as I come back from the meeting. So now I got dog shit. I mean, now I've worked through the trash recycling, but now I got dog shit, Michael. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? So I'm writing inventory again, and he's laughing. Have you talked to her? No, I haven't talked to her. You got to pray and meditate. I pray and meditate. Same answer. Patience, tolerance, love, and understanding. I get it. You know, I'm good. I'm a man of God. I tell all the guys that I work with what great work I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm a total jackass, right? And I go through this, and this goes on for another, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. Like I said, not that quick on the uptake. And I'm thinking this whole time, you know, I'm of love and service. Everything's going pretty well. And one day, I get up in the morning and I go out the front door instead of the side door. I never go out the front door. I always go out the side door where the stoop is. But I went out the front door, and I did not get the trash, recycling, and poop. So I get to the office, and two things. The first thing I think is, well, it's about damn time she got. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. You know, all right. This is, I gotta make amends because this is my job, right? So I wait, and my home group is Hermosa Beach Men's Stag. It meets at 7:30 to 9 on Monday nights. It used to be 8:30, and I'm there, and I'm at home, and I'm waiting for my wife and my daughter. We're gonna have dinner before I go to the meeting, and I wait for the right time, and I say, Lynn, I don't know if you noticed this, but I didn't get the trash, recycling, and poop this morning. I'm at the front door instead of the side door, and I know that's my job. I want to apologize. I'll do better next time. And she's like, what? I said, the trash, recycling, and poop. I've only been doing it for about 10 years, and I know it's my job, and I'll do better. I'll do better next time. She's like, what are you talking about? So I pause. It says you're supposed to pause when agitated or doubtful. So I pause, and I repeat. I tell her one more time again, real slow. And by the way, guys, the women, they love it when you talk to them real slow like that. They really impresses the hell out of them. I went through this again, and my wife is just like, Steve, what are you talking about? She's like, I leave that in the morning. I figure I'll get it, or the girls will get it, or you'll get it, but I don't leave it there for you. Well, that never occurred to me, right? Because I've already jumped to conclusions and to judgment, and but I now I realize that I've had this resentment that has no basis in fact. They talk about fancied or real. This is an illusion. This is my delusion, but I recognize this, and I gotta basically. recover from this real quick. I don't want, and I'm so spiritual. I just, I look at her and I say, I got to go, babe. I got to go to the meeting because I don't know what to say, right? I figure I'll get to the meeting and my sponsor, Michael or Bill C, one of the guys, the icons of the group, they'll commiserate, they'll understand, right? That no, they think this is hilarious. They want me to go around to all the new guys and tell them, say, Lamb, no, you need to tell them what it's like to be, 17, 18 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, this spiritual giant, and you're still a jackass. I just go around and tell everybody, share this with everybody, right? Which is embarrassing, but it's what we do. And it's like, it's Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like, clean up on aisle 11, constantly. you know, I'm going through this process, and I'm talking to Michael, and he's laughing, and I'm like, oh God. He goes, well, there's good news and bad news. I'm like, all right, what's the bad news? And he grins and he goes, but it never ends, Lamb. It never ends. And I go, great. What's the good news? He said, the good news is the same as the bad news. It never ends. You're in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's always something to do. And, and you're with us now. We sometimes we say that the most spiritual thing you're going to ever hear is just get in the car. Just come with us. You're with us now. And basically, they didn't talk me into love and service. They showed me. They demonstrated it. I mean, I remember at one point in time when I first started, this is how bizarre my thought process was. Michael says to me, he says, you should have a commitment at the meeting. I say, all right, because I want you to clean up. I want you to take a mop. And the way our home group does is, it's a two-man job, and there you only get a half the room. You got to mop, you got to sweep and mop half the room. Like I said, it's kind of like a bowling alley, so it's right in the middle. There's a left side and the right side. I had the right side, and I'm like, mop. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm a lawyer. He goes, yeah, lawyers look good with mops. Shit, I don't know about that, right? So I get there, right, and I take the commitment, right. So I'm sweeping and I'm mopping, and I've been doing this for a couple months, and at one point in time, I'm kind of grousing about the fact that I gotta sweep and mop, and then I kind of get into it. I get into rhythm, right, and I'm doing this, like I said, I got the right side, right, and I look over, right, and Jerry, who's got the left side. He's like mopping on my side. I'm like, hey, dude, that's my side of the room, man. This is my job. I mean, that is not my natural state of being. I'm not the kind of guy I would just let Jerry mop the whole damn room. I mean, but now I've got a commitment. I've got a purpose, and you haven't, talked me into love and service. You've showed me how to, you've walked me through this process. And I'm so grateful. I can't, and what's so bizarre to me about it is I look back on the steps, and I remember thinking, I looked at the steps and I thought, man, this is stupid. This has nothing to do with my complex set of social issues. I mean, I looked at like 4 and 5. Like I said, I'm a lawyer. That's confession. That's evidence, man. I'm not doing that. That just seemed ridiculous, right? And that wasn't the bad part. The bad part was 8 and 9. And like I said, I'm not stupid. I know it's their money, but man, some of them don't even know I've got it. And how is me giving them back their money going to help me be sober? I mean, because I got some financial problems, I need the money step, and you're telling me in the book, hey, the spiritual always precedes the material. None of this makes any sense. And that's because it's not about the material. It's about the spiritual. None of this makes any sense looking forward. It only makes sense looking backward, because it's experiential. And, I think about that, and I think about love and service now, and I think about like some of the new guys that balk, at wanting to do stuff, at balk at wanting to be, one of the things that we're of service is when we make amends. And I've come to believe that the amends process, really, that's the transformative process. I mean, prayer and meditation is pretty cool. And meditation is really important, but really we pray and meditate because that's what happens between 10 and 12. That's what happens, so that we can get ready to be of service, not only to other alcoholics, but to the world at large, because that's our purpose in life. And I had no understanding of that until I go through this process. It just makes no sense to me until you do it. But one of the things I look back on it now is I realize that, I mean, Sandy Beach, who I was a real fan of Sandy's, and Sandy used to say a couple of things. He used to say, once you do this, once you've had this experience, once you've had this transformative experience, your world as you knew it will be different. And you'll be in a position where you will not be able to not do this, which is a double negative. It doesn't make any sense. A lot of times in Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll hear people say, well, I had to do this. I had to go to the meeting. I had to do this. There'll be a point in time in my experience, if you really embrace this, where you no longer have to do stuff. It's just what you do. It becomes a part of the fabric of your existence. That's been my experience. It's like, why do we do this? It's because we do it. Because, it's who we are. I don't really think about it anymore. It's a reaction to who I've become because I'm not that person anymore. And it certainly doesn't mean that I've ascended anywhere or anything like that. It's more like I'm just more and more aware of who I am. And when I look at things and I stay involved in this process of inventory and amends and service, I think it helps me. It helps me to be right sized. But I'll tell you, like I mentioned to you earlier, when we're talking about this being of service and making a demonstration, the 12 and 12 from time to time talks about, we don't want to do it. We resist. It says, use words, rebellion dogs are every step. And one of the things that I ran into was, it took me a while but I realized that I was engaged in really harmful sarcasm. And I don't mean, I mean, everybody can be a little bit sarcastic. It's great to have some dry humor, particularly if it's self-effacing, and that's all good. But I was using it as a weapon, and I was doing inventory, and I realized that, I was being hurtful. And I could tell because I would engage in this sarcasm. I'm not talking about one comment. I'm talking like 2, 3, 4 comments. I'm kind of grinding these men into dust, and their faces are falling. I can tell. So I got this problem with sarcasm. It's a pretty significant character defect. I've identified it, and I've talked to my sponsor about it. I go back, and in 6 and 7 is, am I willing to have this defective character removed? Yeah, I'm willing. It's killing me. It's eating my lunch. Have I humbly asked? So I ask, and I'm reading inventory to my sponsor, Michael, and I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it, and I'm telling him, I'm like, I'm a dick. I can't stop. And I can kind of see myself. It's happening as it's happening. I'm watching myself do it. And I know I'm not supposed to do it, and I can't not do it. And then I got to go back and I make an amends and I'm writing inventory. It's really painful, right? And what do I do about this? He says, well, have you humbly asked? I said, yeah, I have. I'm talking to God. And really, but it's just not working. He's like, well, in the old days, and when they talk about humbly ask, they used to say humbly on our knees. He said, I don't know if that would work, but maybe if you got on a position, on your knees, that might help. I'm like, all right, man, I'll give it a shot. I mean, this is killing me. I'll try it. So I'm praying and meditating, and I go through the process. I've made amends, but I'm on my knees and I'm asking God to remove this defect of character because sarcasm is bad. And the root of the word sarcasm is sarcasmo, which actually means to render or tear flesh. I mean, it's awful, right? What I'm doing. So I'm going through this process and I keep doing it, right? And I'm writing inventory. I'm talking to Michael about it. I keep doing it. I'm praying. He goes, all right. He goes, this isn't in the book, but I'm going to make a suggestion. Are you? I say, yeah, all right. I'll try anything. He goes, you keep telling me you're a dick. Because what I want you to do is you have those, those Post-it things, that you can, yeah, yeah. I want you to take a Post-it and write, don't be a dick on the Post-it. Put it on your mirror, put it on your dashboard, put it around your office. Just don't be, maybe it'll remind you. All right, I got it. All right, guys. So I got the Post-it, don't be a dick, praying, meditating. I'm on my knees, and I'm still a dick. I'm still a dick. It's driving me crazy. I'm writing inventory, right? He goes, all right. I go, I tell you what, this is a real piece of business. And I got to tell you, I'm going to talk to my sponsor, who at the time was Scott Redmond. And, he'll get to you. And so Scott calls me and he goes, yeah, I heard you got this problem with sarcasm. I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, we've been aware of that. We've been watching that for a while. And I said, oh yeah, yeah. What do I do? He goes, okay, here, we've got it figured out. This is what we're going to do. Now, Scott starts reading me his inventory. And I'm like, what are you doing? Because I'm reading you inventory. Don't you know what, I mean, you know what inventory? Yeah, I know what inventory is. But you're reading me your inventory. I said, yeah, yeah. He goes, I go, that's not right. He goes, what do you mean that's not right? He goes, I don't know. I mean, I read inventory and I read it to Michael. I've read it to you. My sponsees read it to me, but I don't read it to sponsees. I mean, it flows up. It doesn't flow down. He goes, oh, there's no hierarchy in Alcoholics Anonymous. He goes, and by the way, in 6 and 7, we're talking about willingness and humility. And one of the ways that I practice humility is I share this inventory with people that I sponsor and people that I'm close to. And you're a sponsee of a sponsee. And that's how we build that relationship. And basically this is part of the terms of engagement. This is how it helps me to practice humility and to deal with my higher power, these defects of character. He said, and it works for me. You ought to try it. And he hung up and I thought about it and I thought, I see his point. I do. But there's no way in hell I'm doing that. I mean, this is embarrassing. I got sponsees. I'm not going to read inventory to sponsees. This is ridiculous. There's got to be another way, right? So I'm not doing that, right? And this goes on, I don't know, for a few more weeks. And it's just eating my lunch. I got the Post-its, don't be a dick. I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm on my knees. I'm still a dick, and I finally, I break down and all right. So I call this guy that I sponsor and I said, all right, I need to read you some inventory. He's like, what? I say, I'm going to read you some inventory. He's like, whoa. And I said, all right, don't say it, just listen. Okay. So I read him the inventory, right? And I get done. He goes, this is great. Are you going to tell the other guys you sponsor? I say, hey, don't push it. Don't push it. One at a time. Just let's not overreact here. Right. Right. And he thinks it's great. And so I read inventory to these other guys that I sponsor. And what happens is through constant interaction with me, what happens is the rough edges of my personality, this sarcasm, they start to grind down. And I'm not going to tell you that it's gone away completely, but it's diminished rapidly because this is a spiritual practice. And this is part of that process of being in service. Am I really going to try to carry this message? Am I really going to honestly talk about what's really going on today? Am I really going to give these people that I love, these men that I sponsor, a real piece of business? Or am I just going to sit there and try to be the teacher, whatever the hell that is? I mean, one of the things that always cracks me up in Alcoholics Anonymous is you hear people say things like, when the student is willing, the teacher will appear. Yeah, maybe. When the student is willing, the student will do the work. I don't know that the teacher is that important. And who the hell is teaching who? I got to tell you, I learned more from these sponsees. One of the things that my sponsor used to say is you're going to get more out of this relationship of sponsoring these men than you are to your relationship with yourself. I thought that's ridiculous. That's impossible. And that's exactly what happened, you know. And I love my sponsor, but I got to tell you, this, you know, it's just like, you know, and this is, and I mainly sponsor. I have one woman that I sponsor, but it's mainly men, and it's like a, you know, it's like a brotherhood. It's like, and we're all jackasses. We're all donkeys. One of my guys says it's like it's, you know, it's like the brotherhood of the donkeys, you know, and we're just trying to, we're pack mules, man. We're just trying to be of service. We're just trying to, uh, we're just trying to be right here, right now. And that is a lot easier to say than it is to do. And I got to tell you, one of the ways that I can be present, that I can be right here, right now, is when I'm working with you. Because I have these problems and I pray and meditate and I ask God for guidance and direction. And what happens in every instance is He sends me to you and you to me. Apparently, that's how God works, at least in my life. And I got to tell you, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're still struggling with this, I want to tell you that you're with us now, and if you lean into it, at first you might think, I don't know that I want to be with us. Some of us are pretty weird. We can be really weird, but we're pretty entertaining. And if you lean into it, um, it's a wonderful life. It is, and it'll keep you busy and it'll keep you engaged. So thanks for having me here. It's really great to be here this morning or this afternoon for you guys. Thank you.